We lost a little bit of a legend last week. Drew Struzan's artwork is something that left an indelible mark upon my childhood, seeing his posters for all sorts of movies as I grew up. This was before the days of Photoshop. Everything was hand painted, and Drew was truly the master of this format. He didn't actually start in film posters. He actually started with album covers for rock bands and just other general illustration work. But he then produced a new poster for the re-release of Star Wars in 1978. And this was what put him on his journey towards becoming the name in 80s and 90s film posters. And so enduring is his legacy that even now the format of movie posters is largely based often upon his style of portraiture, lighting and colour. He put together these collages that spoke to you and had a soul that have since been recreated soullessly and sometimes hilariously awfully by Photoshop. In the words of the master himself, I felt that art was more than just telling the story. I'm looking to give a person a feeling about something they could hope for. I design a composition that is open-ended, not closed-ended, saying this is what you have to think about this. Open-ended means the viewer explores the subject from their point of view. I love it when that happens. Now, sadly, Drew would see the era of handcrafted movie poster end, and yeah, he would be quite impacted by that. In fact, 2000 onwards, he would create relatively few posters, largely having retired. He'd do his own sketches and things like that, but he felt that the age of the artistry of the film poster was done, again with his own words. A lot of people have made comments about that, but my feeling is that it's over. Anybody who has the technical skills can put a film poster together these days, theoretically, and it means that it doesn't have that same magic, and you wouldn't have that same connection with the poster that you used to have. And looking at Drew's artworks, we can see that this is absolutely true. You can see the care that went into each of his pieces of art. You can see the thought, and through his sketches and through the versions that don't even make it to the final product, or to versions that aren't even picked in favour of something more modern, that don't have the emotional resonance that something created by hand would have. We got to the stage where you could tell a Drew Struzan poster just by looking at it, often imitated, never matched. The fact of the matter is, Drew Struzan will always be remembered for his work in movie marketing, in bringing those movies to life, but also for so much more than that. He'll be remembered for being the man that brought the movie magic to life before we'd even seen a single frame. And I'm just going to go through a few of his pieces of art and just kind of pass comment, really. So if you want to see some of his best works, please stay with me for the next few minutes while I rattle on and appreciate the genius that was Drew Struzan. We're starting off here with a piece that isn't even from a movie, but I wanted to put this in because this reminded me very much of another artist that I feel would have been heavily influenced by Drew, and that would be Keith Birdsong. Keith Birdsong did a lot of pieces for Star Trek novels that, again, I read growing up in the 90s and 2000s, and this was reminiscent of that style. So here we've got a Star Trek Voyager one. Here's a self-portrait by the master himself. We've got the famous Back to the Future triptych. Just amazing work. Same idea, over and over again, lending a cohesiveness to what is possibly the best movie trilogy of all time. And then we've got this mega famous piece, the Star Wars Special Edition triptych, which, although it is released as 3 individual pieces, when put together forms an amazing piece of artwork. You can see the alignment from the centre going outwards. So you can see A New Hope, Tatooine-ish sun colours that are at play there, and then the darkness of The Empire Strikes Back, and then that final climactic duel in Return of the Jedi. Even though Luke's lightsaber should technically be green there. And it's all the little details in Drew's artwork that I loved. You can see the AT-ATs down in the bottom right there. And Drew knew how to bring some things to the forefront and some things to the back, but to make sure everything was identifiable within his posters. This is a Blade Runner piece. I think this wasn't even the final piece that got picked. Again, his work with light, with texture, real art, not Photoshop. You can recreate this with Photoshop, but you lose something. You lose the attack on the canvas or the paper. You lose the soul. Here's a piece that's the creature from the Black Lagoon. Again, instantly identifiable. Another Blade Runner piece. I think this appeared on the Ultimate Cut. I think I've got this. And there's a physical format. Harrison Ford was probably the guy that Drew Struzan illustrated or drew most over the years. Early sketch, Star Wars, not just the Phantom Menace. You've got Luke, you've got Obi-Wan. Disney would, at a certain point, let's say, because they're certainly re-embracing the stuff that people actually like, Disney would have wanted this out of the way at one point. Where's Rey? Early sketch for Blade Runner there. All the elements. You've got the spinner, got Roy, Deckard, got the Tyrrell Owl, Tyrrell himself, Deckard's pistol. Brilliantly done. His composition was second to none. Here's his piece for Hellboy, which was ultimately not chosen, unfortunately. And you can see where he's left the space for a banner and for the credits of the filmmakers. Again, great piece. That's John Hurt right there as Professor Broom. But ultimately they went for the moody photo piece. Adventures in Babysitting, promises adventure. Glowing metropolis in the background. Again, composition just amazing. Grounding on the right-hand side of the wall. Fievel Goes West. Drew understands the assignment. You've got the space at the bottom for the title, but you've got that promise in the background. There's a Statue of Liberty. There's Fievel disembarking from the boat. Just shows you everything you need. Here's an unused piece. This never got used. Again, Statue of Liberty in the background. Fievel standing on all the luggage. Batteries not included. Love this film. Love this film. Another great one with the little alien robots flying through a bedroom window. Just summing up that movie in kind of one go. That's what Drew was great at. And again, just to quickly quote the great man himself, raw paint is a very organic experience. You never know what might happen when you add more water and let it run, or spray the paint, or splatter. All those things I love to do. Half the fun is watching what happens and using that knowledge to create emotion in the art. I wouldn't want to give that up by learning Photoshop. It isn't in my nature. 100%. Big Trouble in Little China. Very famous piece. Not even the final piece. I think I might have this on a board game of, obviously, Big Trouble in Little China. Crocodile Dundee. DuckTales did animation just as well. E.T. and probably one of his last film projects. Harry Potter. The culmination of all of those years of practice, mastery. Hocus Pocus, complete with Sarah Jessica Parker's Yabos. There was a playfulness and emotion to all of his work that sometimes is completely absent from today's generic committee-approved photoshopped artworks. And he was so good at capturing emotion. That's exactly what Dustin Hoffman's Hook is like. The cheekiness of Julia Roberts' Tinkerbell. Just brilliant, brilliant work. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. These vignettes of all of these moments from the films just summed up into one image. This is what you were going to get. This was the promise. Master of the Universe. A singular movie, let's just put it that way. But again, Drew captures it perfectly. And A Muppet Christmas Carol. What a film. Michael Caine playing it completely straight. Muppet's Treasure Island. And he didn't do just good films, he did bad films too, but even those he injected the right amount of everything. Police Academy. Perfectly summing up all the characters. Just great work. Return to Oz. Film that freaked me out when I was a kid. And then we get onto his prequel era stuff. His portraiture is just out of this world. But one of my favourite pieces that he ever did hasn't even got a face on it. It's The Thing. You might say technically it's not one of his best. It's relatively crude in many ways. But the actual promise of what this poster gives you, and it's just like, look, this poster is the unknown, the horror, and it comes from within. It's perfectly encapsulated within this piece of art. And here we've got his Hellboy 2 piece, and that, Pan's Labyrinth, again, sums up the film. He was all about feeling. It was all about what he wanted to put into it. And that was Drew Struzan in a nutshell. It really was. Shawshank Redemption, one of the greatest films. So much emotion, so much feeling, so much artistry. And sadly, that's lost. We now have ever more generic film posters that are generally created with Photoshop. Not to say there's not an amount of artistry in there, but with the passing of Drew Struzan, we have undeniably lost something about the movie-going experience. We're now in the era where marketing is all about digital composition, turning around mass marketing, social media. This is before those times. This is when you'd walk past a bus stop and you'd see a poster, and that would be your initial impression of the film. And initial impressions count. And Drew Struzan made every single one count. So I would just like to say, thank you. Your legacy is assured. Rest in peace. Thanks for watching. I have been Critic, and I'll be back with another video soon.